Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Party Data Marketing Summit. I'm Benoît Bouteille. I'm your host today. Before jumping into the topic, I just want to remind you that if you have questions, you have the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. I will be monitoring that. We'll be answering the question if you have them during the session or at the end. So today's session will be 25 minutes-ish, and we have time at the end to really have a discussion on the topic. So without further ado, I'm really pleased to introduce our guest today, Khalil Guliwala, Marketing Automation Manager at Solution Metrix. And Khalil, he will talk about acquisition, retention, zero-party data, and how to mix all of that and how to leverage the zero-party data in the strategies. Khalil,
sure, I'll take it from here. Sure. Thank you so much for the introduction, Benoît. If you give me a moment, I'll start sharing my screen. And that way you should be seeing the deck as well. So just so again, I'm just so excited to be here at the Tinyclues First Party Marketing Summit. And our session really is on connecting digital client acquisition retention with zero-party data. So let's just dive right in. A quick introduction for myself. So as Benoît said, my name is Khalil Guliwala. I work in CRM and marketing automation strategy, and I'm currently leading the marketing automation practice at Solutions Metrix in Montreal, Canada. I think briefly, it's also important to understand why you should be listening to me. So I think there's three main reasons: skill set, perspective, as well as success. So perspective is that I actually started off as an epidemiologist researching human population healthcare, and I kind of got looped into marketing. So I studied journalism, studied analytics, and really what I found is that when we're thinking of marketers, we need to think a little bit more about human populations and how they move, and really how they're moving throughout time, which is where that perspective epidemiology comes in. In addition, it's also perspective. So being in Canada, I've had access, working at one of the largest supermarket chains in the country, working at Yves Rocher International Cosmetics Company, and having a network across Canada means that my insights aren't just for one sector, but they're across Canada and the North American environment, which I'm sure will be applicable no matter where in the world you are. And lastly, it's also success. Like I wouldn't be here if I wasn't successful in using these techniques, and I've grown revenue by about 20%. So, and of course, my goal over here is to be able to teach you the techniques I've learned so that you don't go through the same pains I went through, and you're able to really maximize ROI when it comes to your clients. So let's talk about the agenda. So really the agenda, as Benoît said, is going to be about 25 minutes, or about 5 minutes left for Q&A at the very end. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section within the Zoom chat. And I'll either answer them on the slide itself or later on in the Q&A. The agenda itself, we're currently in the intro part of the section. We're going to do a case study. Then we're going to go into a roadmap of how to set this up. I'm going to come back to the case study. I've put a few questions that people tend to frequently answer, and then we have a Q&A at the very end. Now, when it comes to this session, I think we also need to ask why we're here. And some of you, like me, could be, we're intellectually curious. We're analysts, we're scientists, we're marketers. I could talk about this for days. But more importantly, I also think it's about money. We're here plain and simple for sales and revenue, right? So we shouldn't lose sight of why we're here. This is extremely important to your bottom line, especially in the market and environment we are in right now. Inflation in Europe has hit double digits. Borrowing costs have gone up, interest rates have risen, capital costs have gone very expensive. If we need to weather this storm, we need to have a granular understanding of the customer base, because that could be the difference between survival and liquidation of your company. Additionally, through COVID and through digital acceleration, we're seeing some of the most crowded digital environments in the world. We're talking about ads from everything left and right. I'll give you an example. I love to buy books. I am seeing digital ads for a used book company. Unheard of 2 years ago. Everybody is trying to get in on the gold rush before it gets too expensive. Again, what does that mean? Cost of acquisition has gone up. Retention has gone up. Lifetime value is all over the place. If you are competing against a big company, these people have armies of data scientists, marketers, CRM experts, tables that stretch out, people who are trying to get into the minds of your customers. How do you compete in this environment? How does David beat Goliath? Using data, plain and simple. The advantage you have if you're a small and medium-sized business is that the whales have siloed departments. They have bloated administrative procedures and an inability to act quickly. This is where you can play to your strengths. If you're a big company, you can obviously use the techniques over here, and I'll give you tips on how to sell it internally. Now, lastly, before we jump really into the meat of this presentation applies to both products and services. The focus is on email as a main digital channel. It also applies to telemarketing, face-to-face direct mail. We can talk about it in the Q&A if you have very specific questions. Additionally, this is very much based on direct-to-customer, also known as DTC. If you're selling through retail or marketplace where you don't control the info, I do have some tips and techniques. And again, ask them to me in the Q&A. So let's jump right in. So the example I've given here is a case study because I think it's easier if you can visualize something. So in this case, it's a fictional company that sells gourmet dog treats. So again, if you have a dog or a cat or a pet, you want to maybe reward them every while with something that tastes really good, a little biscuit for your animal friend. And again, as I walk through this, think about the parallels that apply for you. This is a product, right? So in any kind of product, you can have sort of, small, medium, large, right? That's the upsell. So in this case, maybe they have package sizes. They have a 200-gram package at $3 and a 500-gram package at $5. The details aren't important. I'm not going to quiz you on it, but I want you to think about, hey, in your operation, when are you thinking of selling the same product or service, but in terms of a small, medium, large, bigger quantities? In addition, you could also be having cross-selling. What is cross-selling? Is when you've had someone interested in product A and you want to then interest them in product or service B. So in this case, maybe their flavors are beef and chicken. So here's the thing is that, so what I'm trying to get towards is, and this is probably applicable across the board. Now, what happens is typically when someone makes a purchase, and let's say after transactions, their emails and onboarding, at some point, they're going to get an email like this on the right. And notice what's happening here. This is using information on the transaction. It's the first name of the customer. So Tintin is talking about what they previously purchased. Whatever is sort of the data elements, I put in the red font, the white is just grammar. Again, first red font, Tintin, your name. Beef flavor, what they previously bought. Last month, recency. Hey, how long ago did someone buy this? Now, here's where the cross-sell applies, which is the flavors. New chicken flavor version of it. Buy now. What are we seeing over here? Is information from a transaction is used to populate a message, in this case, an email. What is in red is also known as personalization. What is personalization is using information from a client to be able to upsell them, to be able to cross-sell them, to be able to increase a lifetime value. For an email, what it means, if you get this right, you can do a better job with your open rates, click-through rates, and sale. A couple of years ago, the attitude or strategy was very much a spray and pray approach. What does that mean? You get emails saying, dear sir, madam, or dear friend, or dear customer. The emails had no personalization, nothing that was targeted based upon the customer. And it was frustrating. But if you're looking at it now, what's going to happen is that if you can use this information, you can be able to produce a better marketing material targeted to your customer. What this is what's happening right now. So again, if you've not seen this already, this is just you getting to where we are right now. Every company out there is really trying to optimize an email of this version. Now, on the next slide, I'm going to walk you through really a bit more details of how this client data is typically analyzed and used. I'm just breaking out the current tactics, right? So at this stage, if the generic email was sort of cooking at fire, now we have a stove. Top level, 5 things we're looking at. A lot of people look upon sources, so you're tracking them through UTMs to really monitor lifetime value and track against acquisition cost. What does this mean? If let's say you've got ads on Facebook, Google, some other software, you want to track the kind of clients coming in to say, hey, was it really worth spending that money for advertisements on that platform? You have questions about lifestyles. Again, is that, when it comes to customers' preference attributes, for example, in the dog food example, maybe it's the name of the pet. For a supermarket, it could be whether vegetarian or the size of the household. Demographic information about the client. So this is about the buyer data. What's their age? What's their gender, language, location? Purchase history. So this is where, again, the previous example was really using a lot of information from. So we're using it really to upsell and cross-sell. Upsell, again, is selling them higher quantities of the same product. Cross-sell is introducing new products that are similar to what the client previously bought. This can end up being a product recommendation. So in our last slide, we were recommending, hey, why don't you buy the beef flavored biscuits because you bought chicken previously? Or the other advantage is that if you look at sort of purchase history and you see something, maybe you can push them towards a subscription model where essentially it's sort of they pay a one-time fee and something comes to them once a month. Now, this is where the deep dive comes in. Like I said, this is going to be a fast webinar. Is one of the main models used to drive customer loyalty and customer lifetime value is called RFM models. R is recency, F is frequency, F is monetary. Recency being how long ago did they make the purchase? Frequency is how often are they making the purchase? And monetary being what is the value of the purchases they're making? And what we're seeing is that customers are scored based upon these models, these RFM recency frequency models. The ones who are the most active customers, they usually put in what I call surprise and delight campaigns. So the idea is that these people who are spending a lot of money, your best clients, probably where most of your revenue is coming from, and it ends up being, hey, here's a gift for you, here's a private event, having early access passes, really getting them to really love your product and your brand. For those clients who are active, they're not super active, they're not kind of inactive, they're kind of in between, a loyalty program. So again, rewarding them through points, rewarding them just to kind of feel a little bit more engaged with your brand because you don't want to lose them. You spend so much money acquiring these clients, you want to maximize their lifetime value before they drop off. And the last element that's also currently happening is re-engagement tactics. So again, this is where you're talking to your least active or your inactive customers. Primarily, the strategies here involve discounting and coupons. I've seen this done. I've talked to different people in the sector. This is also a race to the bottom. I mean, discounting is very, very difficult. It's very tricky. You cut into your margins. So again, as is where we are right now, this is giving an overview of where the industry is at, where the marketing industry is at in terms of using data to get to customers. Now, we could end the presentation right here, but I'll tell you why there's a few more slides over here. And the reason was because as I was working in this largest supermarket chain in Canada, as I was working for an international cosmetics company, as I was working as a consultant for people looking to increase their customer lifetime value, acquisition rates, and retention rates, what I saw was that the bulk of the clients were not making a second purchase. Using these techniques, they got better. But I was still shocked. Why are clients not making a second purchase? What is happening where, for example, they're coming in, but they're dropping off so quickly? As I went and started doing market research and looking into the results, what I found is that clients and customers, they're actually a bit, they're not as loyal as we think they are. And maybe it's that word loyalty. It's the fact that they're not our customers. We are one of their companies. They will shop around. They will look at competing prices. They will look at competing experiences for their products. Now, why is this again important? It's because if your cash projections, if your financial projections are based upon the number of customers you have, and they are kind of all over the place, it's hard to predict revenue. It's hard to affect forecasting inventory. It's hard for ad spend. So much is being spent. Spending for digital ads is getting more and more expensive by the day, and it's really not moving the needle in the way we'd like to. And of course, that intellectual side of me is, what is going on? Why are these customers not behaving in the way we think they should, given that we're using all the data that we have to really push them forward? And as I spent time with a big idea I came across was that we were actually not asking 3 core questions. And I'm going to list them. So the first question is, why did someone start buying the product or the service? Second question is, why did someone stop buying the product or the service? And third question is, why did they buy from you? Now, I want to let those questions sink in for the moment. Just think about that. Now, think about your business and your clients. If you think beyond your PR, your branding or marketing, can you pick a client in your database, in your CRM, in your Salesforce, HubSpot, Marketo, Creatio, Dynamics, Sugar, take a client and say, why did this person buy the product? Why did they stop buying the product? And why did they buy from you? And you might have the answer. You might. But I'm saying is, if you think hard, what you're going to see like me is we actually don't know that. We infer why they're buying. If someone, for example, let's take the dog food, the dog treat example. Someone bought a dog treat. Is it because they're buying it for their dog? Is it because they're a dog walker who wants to buy treats to reward dogs at the end of a walk? Are there a veterinarian who wants to buy dog treats for their clinic? Is it someone buying it for their friend's dog? We don't know. We infer. It's like as if we're inside the bottle looking out. We don't see the label. We do not understand these customers. All our data models are from the outside in. These questions help us understand a model from the inside out, really getting into the buyer's mind, into why they actually bought this from the first place. And so as we kind of go through it, what we need to think about is about, especially in this environment, about inflation. Like I mentioned, costs have gone up, interest has gone up. A granular understanding of your customer base could mean the difference between survival and liquidation. If you can understand why they started buying the product, why they stopped buying the product, and why they bought from you, that can give you an edge like nothing else in existence. And I've seen this happen. Now, on the next slide, I'm going to give you a roadmap of a step-by-step of the kinds of questions you need to be asking. Now, there's something here that's very crucial to understand, which is you need to ensure that each step is completed before advancing to the next step. These are like dominoes. If you have a step that isn't complete and you move forward, it's really not going to work. What's important is what the order is. So normally what happens is, in my experience has been, when we start working with clients or people, they start starting off with the questions, hey, should we ask clients if they like blue or red? Should we ask clients if they like chicken or beef? That's too early. That's actually the how at the very end. What we need to start asking is first, is from left to right, is the why. Why do you want to leverage data for client acquisition and retention? Why that's important to know is because later on, when you're going through questions about data privacy, when you're going through questions about the kind of organization you should be, you need to know who you are. Because once you start, you may have to ask yourself, are you ready to commit the energy and time to be the type of organization to use zero-party data? Who is the buyer? Who is the end user? Are they same or different? For example, simple sale versus complex sale. Doctor example, the human's the buyer, the dog is the end user, right? If you're buying shoes for kids, the buyer is maybe the adult and the end user is a child. Who is it? Understanding that. What are the substitutes alternatives to your products? So substitutes are when you offer the same functionality utility. So for example, another dog treat company would be a substitute. Alternatives, which is different functions or utilities. For example, instead of rewarding a dog with a dog treat, could it be a toy? What are your substitutes alternatives for your product or services? When does the customer reach out for your product? Now, by the time a transaction occurred, they've already bought the product. It's beforehand. Are they reaching out for the dog treat before they leave the house? Are they thinking about shoes before the school season starts? Are they thinking about a CRM or some kind of software when they're having a financial budget decision? That's the when question. Where are people hearing about you? These are questions which go into social media, places, blogs, user groups. The last thing you come to is the how. How do you ask the questions to capture the data you want to collect? This is the last step. And once you get the order right, once you get all those questions answered, the how becomes simple. Now, let's go back to case study part 2. Now, when we talked about it, I talked about retention and acquisition. So retention, what does that mean? So let's start from the top one, left to right. The question, so for example, on your lead form, your transaction page, you could ask the question saying, hey, what's the reason you were making this purchase today? That information that gets moved on to your CRM, your database, whatever you want to call it, and you can store the data on the customer profile. And I highly suggest you do it, and against details, but store it on the transaction records, because someone's reasons can change over time, and this way you can monitor on the transaction if there is trends or changes over time. And that information can be used for personalized marketing. For example, in future marketing, you can leverage the zero-party data for retention, upsell, cross-sell. Now, that information that's used from client can also, then now what's important is acquisition. It can update your acquisition strategies. And that's the bottom line of the acquisition. From left to right, you have to review the answers given by people. For example, if someone said, hey, for doctor example, I'm a veterinarian, I'm a dog walker. Suddenly you're saying, hey, these are interesting insights here. My client isn't just a dog owner. Then it's, hey, maybe I update my marketing. Marketing gets updated. How does that affect your paid ads, the kind of content, images, strategies, call to actions, your paid ads, your lead forms, your transaction pages, your onboarding journey? Then analyze, because you also want to be continually tracking your conversion and retention rates as well as your dollar spends. So the kind of leverage case studies, as you start thinking, as you go through the roadmap and you're implementing it, once you ask those questions, store it in your client record, use it obviously for retentions on that granular level for each client, but also use more broader level insights that can then feed into your acquisition strategies wherever they are. Now, the last slide is frequently answered questions. These are questions that I get all the time. I put them in here, which makes it a bit simpler. There's a question I've gotten is, I don't feel comfortable asking these questions, especially after watching a documentary called Social Dilemma. Algorithms have portrayed in a very negative light. What should I do? And I say this all the time. I said, you see, I get angry, I get frustrated. I mean, it's really your choices between survival and liquidation. But more important is who you are. Decide who you want to be. Make up your mind, and you can do it in an ethical way, in a transparent way. If you have the kind of content that really helps a client, they're going to appreciate it more. Should I re-ask the question? Yes. Should I make questions mandatory? Only if answering gives value to your customer. Monitor for some drop-offs. Now, I've seen cases where you go pages and pages of questionnaires to sign up. I've talked to these organizations. I'm the kind of person, I reach out. I sign up for products just to see the onboarding journey. Not all the data is used. Some of it's probably never even used. And I've got confirmation from a lot of organizations. It's just someone thought about doing it, but never thought to use it. Should I send surveys to my customers? Yes, surveys are a great way. Could customers' reasons change from purchase to purchase? Yes, hence you see on the transaction records. You can go back and look for trends over time. What technology do I need to master? CRMs, databases, again, what does that mean? Salesforce, HubSpot, Marketo. But really, if you're talking to your team, it's two ways. Hey, I need to import and export, just moving in place to another. That's what this is. And again, I've had people say, thank you for the roadmap. Thank you for taking, but can you really suggest some questions to ask? I put some questions where they'll help you. And this can, of course, you can translate in whatever language that you operate in. The one key I'd say to you is, and this is something that I've noticed, is don't ask questions that begin with why. Because what I notice is when you ask a question with why, people stop and they start to say, hey, I need to self-reflect. They get self-conscious. But if you word it in what or how, it doesn't sound as neat, but people actually have better responses. So again, the kind of question I ask, what made you purchase product X or service X over similar products today? What would make you continue purchasing X in the future? What will make you stop purchasing X in the future? Why is that important? Because if you're selling a product or a service, you want to know, why did they buy this over anything else in the world? In a place that Amazon can deliver stuff to their house within hours, or there's some kind of delivery, why did they come to you? What are you doing? You want to know what makes them continue, because let's say they loved a certain product and you suddenly decide to discontinue it. You want to know that. You want to know, why are they coming to you? What made them start in the first place? And what would make them stop purchasing? If you're buying shoes for your child, at some point the shoes are not going to work because your child grows bigger. Maybe your dog passes away. Maybe you have to move. You want to understand those details. So understanding these questions helps you get to a better place of understanding your current customer base, which helps you for retention efforts. It helps you maximize your customer lifetime value. But those responses then feed into your acquisition strategies, meaning your digital ads, the kind of copy you're using, the kind of places you're marketing towards. And what that means is you close the loop to really, really make the most of your customer base. Again, thank you so much for attending. As you notice, I love this topic. This was really a high-level view of it. If you have any questions, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. And we also have a 5-minute Q&A session right now if you have any questions. Thank you very much for attending.
Yeah, thank you, Khalil. That's really interesting. So we have a question, so let's jump into the question first.
Please.
And I have some additional stuff. I mean, a really interesting thing that you said that I really want to emphasize, because that's thing that's really important, I think. So the first question is, what are the main KPIs that you recommend the marketers to follow?
Okay, the main KPI. So again, if as this presentation is probably being through email, if you get to personalization using information, I would think of what are the main KPIs for the channel that you're using. For example, if you're using emails, think about again, open rates are interesting, but I say think about click-through rates. Think about, for example, if you're using this. So, for example, I'd say it's the mechanism using the target. So that has certain KPIs. So if you're using telemarketing, it would be number of calls completed, number of calls done successful. But also think about your acquisition and your retention costs. So KPIs being, if you're spending $A to get this client in there, how long are they staying? How long are they staying as an active customer? What is a customer lifetime value? And are you seeing positive spends for it?
Cool. Another one we have is regarding reactivation of customers. Do you have some simple tactics that works? I mean, any tips, any tactics to reactivate customers that are falling off, starting to be less active?
Okay, I say the most common tactic I've seen is discounting, which I can only give my perspective here. I think it's very dangerous to involve deep discounting, because what's going to happen is the quality of your customers it might not be the best. So I say, if you perceive discounting, be very careful of the kind of discounts you're offering. Make sure you're targeting to the kind of clients who either had a very high frequency or had a very high monetary value. Don't give discounting left and right. Or if you are discounting, make sure you include a survey to those clients and asking these 3 questions. Because if they answer, we only here for the discount, that means you immediately know these are really my discount clients. How do I want to treat them? But others might give you insights. Maybe they just need a discount to be able to come in the door. Now, that's the one. So I start with discounting. But beyond discounting, going back to the presentation, is as you're looking at data from almost that micro granular level of clients, look at what they're saying. If you suddenly see clients saying, you know what, I'm really interested in product A, I was really interested in your service A, think about then when you're reactivating these clients or re-engaging them, you should be leading with this type of messages. Leading with a type of message that says, hey, for example, let's say using the dog example, you saw a client who was using clients or maybe veterinarians. Look at the research, look at the email addresses for clients. Beyond Gmail and Hotmail, are you seeing email addresses for, let's say, banks or some kind of organization? That's prospect research. So really spend time looking in your database, look for lookalikes. What you happen, you're looking in your data, looking at the clients, and you're kind of saying, hey, what can I then use to kind of do re-engagement plus, optimize for re-engagement? Look at the marketing that you've got questions from similar clients you have in your surveys and your landing pages, and then match them to those clients and market to them. So to repeat that, what you want to do is 2 things. If you're doing deep discounting, make sure it's going to your most valuable clients. If you are not discounting, look into your database, look at what can give you an edge upon those clients. Look upon clients which you have reasons for which they've either bought from you or continue to buy from you, and try to see where you can layer those upon each other to then market to those clients using those messages and using the strategies.
Sounds good. So another one, let me see. So the next question is about cross-sell. So you gave an example of cross-sell in the email,
Yes.
the example you shared with the dog treats. And the question is, do you have any suggestion about how to decide which product can be shown as cross-sell? Should we analyze our catalog to find evidence of it? Or do you suggest us to try logic to find cross-sell products? I mean, what's that? And I just before you jump and reply to that, that's related to what I wanted to highlight, that the cross-sell example, and if you tie that with something you said, and there are a lot of really interesting stuff you shared, but in the roadmap, especially in the timeline for retention, something that is critical is that when you ask the question, what was the reason they purchased the product, and you do this survey, you said that storing the information at the transaction level instead of the client's level, I think it's really key there. And I know that there are clients listening to clients of Tinyclues listening to us, delivering our AI, predictive modeling on the first party data, all that technology that can predict future behavior. If you have the information on the reason why they purchased at the transaction level, that just put the information in the time, in time frame, compared to having the answer at the client level, but maybe that was for different reason, a different period, or their experience with your brand. And this really can be leveraged in a very efficient way for cross-sell, especially because if you know the reason why this product was purchased, you can also find what other product these clients purchase and make cohorts of clients purchasing the same type of product for the same reason. And I can take another example on if you buy running shoes, but you know that some people are buying running shoes to go run a marathon, and some are buying the same shoes for fashion and walk in New York. So the reason why you purchase these shoes is super important. And if you tie together all the people and the behavior of the customer who are buying these shoes to run a marathon, you can also do a better predictive or prediction of what will be the cross-sell or upsell, and find other best offer or best next offer recommendation if that's for another reason. And that's what I wanted to highlight. That's storing the information at the transaction level is, I mean, a very, very important advice you shared, and I wanted to highlight that. But I mean, I don't know if you have more comments on the cross-sell, but I really, I think that it's super important.
Yeah, no, actually, I think it's Benoît. When it comes to sort of thinking of cross-selling models, you know, AI predictive modeling, scoring is very, very important. So I think anyone's offering service like that, like Tinyclues, would be very important for a client. I think when it comes to even cross-selling, and I'll give you a quick example is, you know, I do tests for websites. I want to see what their kind of logic they're doing. So I bought it was a resistance band, right? So it's like a band you stretch, you kind of work your arms out. But I bought like the light version of it. A couple of weeks ago, I got an email. It was upsell, so I guess it's the wrong example, but it was trying to push me towards the medium size of the band. If they were cross-selling, what I think is going to happen is predictive analytics goes well. I think predictive analytics is great for if you have a huge catalog. You also don't have a place to start. We'll start to think of it like logically, right? For example, cross-selling is, you know, is that, for example, if you've got something here, you know, what are your top 5 sellers? This is where you get a really high statistical stuff. I say, you know, think of your top 5 sellers. If you can, definitely leave with predictive scoring. Definitely lead with AI. That's where you can really, really get an edge. But if you can't do that, think of your top 5. But if you can, really, the investment in AI, the investment in predictive scoring analytics is going to pay off like nothing else.
No more questions. I don't know. Anything else from the attendees? No, that looks like we covered all the questions. Khalil, I mean, that was a pleasure to have you on the webinar. Thank you very much for sharing all of that. I hope that everyone enjoyed the session. We will share, obviously, we share the slides after, I mean, in the next days or two with everyone who attended the webinar. So you can have the roadmap, the slide with the roadmap, the question, all this really good advices Khalil shared, and so you can start to really think about the reason why you are trying to get the information and data to leverage it correctly. Thank you very much again, and remember that there is another session next week. Next week the session will be in French, and looking forward to seeing you. Have a good one.